NPA led to the emergence of this idea. PubEd as PubEd. We were writing somewhere, right? We had criticized NPA and we had talked about that how now the study of PubEd enters into this phase. So one important development was NPA, other was CPA. That is clear. NPA was criticized on various grounds, right? Again, it will be criticized NPA 2, 3, and likewise. Fine. So once that phase is over, 1950 to 70, we enter into this phase. So how PubEd became actually PubEd? That is very important to understand. Contribution of NPA, contribution of CPA, and there was another development called PCA. ठीक है, ये अलग-अलग parts में दिया है syllabus में, right? But it is not distinct from each other. They were all product of the same timeline. Okay, all this timeline, fine, kindly write some things here. Let's say if I take 1960s, so I have three major developments: NPA 1, CPA, right? PCA. All these developments took place in the same timeline, right? But what is difference in them? See, PCA. We'll talk about, right? NPA, reaction to traditional PubEd. This was a reaction to traditional PubEd, which failed to provide solutions to the problem of society. That is very clear. We have talked about it. CPA, was comparative PubEd, which was the understanding of developing societies through comparison. Right? Comparison with whom? With developed societies. PCA is public choice approach. This is a very unique development. It was in the same phase. Reaction to the welfare state, expansion of government expenditure or activities. Now see three parallel developments taking place in this phase. One, NPA. Second, CPA. Wanted to compare, wanted to develop better knowledge, and obviously to understand the developing societies which had emerged after the Second World War. And PCA at the same time, you can understand, as NPA talked about increasing the role of government in developmental activities, social activities, spend more money, right? PCA was a criticism to that idea. So when government started spending more money, it started doing welfare activities, role of administration increased. Now there emerged a counter reaction to that. That is the PCA. So PCA was coming from a more market private orientation, and it said that government, when it starts performing more functions in the society, the government is bound to fail, bringing the same type of idea which was there under capitalism, right? That the economic functions should not be performed more by the government, it should be performed by the private sector. See, revival of the same idea. The capitalist model used by America, two world wars, Great Depression, failure of industrial movement or decline of the industrial productivity, again increasing role of government, again criticism of government. So it's a cyclical process. As government's role increases, again the criticism starts. First, to try to understand these three things which are happening, right? So like NPA we have talked about. NPA was the initiation, right? There were two more NPAs after that. CPA was also parallelly developing because it wanted to somewhere bring the or make the knowledge of administration universal. It felt that this knowledge is more confined to American viewpoint, and we have to understand now this new world. What is the new world? The developing countries have come into this. So whatever knowledge you had developed, that was insufficient to explain the realities of the world today. So CPA was born out of that urge, right? So one set of scholars developing CPA, one set of scholars talking about NPA, another set of scholars talking about PCA. Now, who were these scholars who were talking about PCA? Now, they were not actually the scholars of public administration. They were basically the scholars coming from economics background. But they wanted to study now the government system. So if you're coming from economics background and you want to study government, what will you study? Policies, correct? Budget, finance, profit loss, how government works, and why government fails. So they had their own explanation that why policies of the government were failing, right? And why government is not an efficient system to deliver goods and services. That was their idea. Okay. So they were supporting more role of the government. They were supporting less role of the government. See the counter idea going together. So as we say that this government is efficient, some will say this government is not efficient. Same logic. So can you say NPA and PCA were like two parallel thoughts? They were opposite to each other. Fine. But obviously, PCA was also trying to improve the governance. It was trying to say that when you're governing the society, when you're managing the society, you should not try to take up all the functions by yourself. You should allow some other actors to flourish. What are those other actors? Market to flourish. All this was happening when? In paradigm 5. 1950. VFA is 1970 onwards. Correct. All this was happening in this time frame. So now this was developing the content of PubAd. Exactly now what was the nature of study? It included this aspect, this aspect, this aspect, and some more aspects. So the literature of the PubAd was developing in this phase, which was mainly driven by first these three developments, and there were so many other developments. Right? Your syllabus has made a demarcation, NPM, NPA, PCA, right? But they are not different from each other. They have to be understood how they are connected to each other. That is how questions are designed in the exam. Okay, they are not asking individually. They link each other. So you have to first understand what was the phase chronologically. It was here, right? NPA as an idea is clear to you. How do we criticize NPA? Correct. Quickly we can revise. What were the criticism?
And they were not having proper mechanism to achieve the objective.
Correct.
They have more ideas than some
means were not there.
And the countries which is older than the
Correct. Okay. What else? Old wine in new bottle. Cosmetic changes. Phenomenological. What do you mean by phenomenological? Correct. Or multiple perspectives are accepted, and that is why we cannot get one single conclusion. Well, intersubjective. Science is more about single conclusion. Phenomenology is more about multiple conclusions. So it was not an appropriate tool to somewhere filter the ideas of the NPA into few principles. This could not happen. So it provided a lot of diversity to this study. If something is phenomenological, right, will it also reflect a multidisciplinary understanding? So one of the elements of NPA was that it brought multidisciplinary perspective in PubEd. Why? If you view at a problem from multiple dimensions, you will require multiple knowledge to explain it. So if I want to view a problem from social perspective, political perspective, economic perspective, what do I need? I need knowledge of these fields to understand it. So if NPA brought this idea, right, obviously it would have involved the study of other subjects in the field of public administration. So NPA becomes multidisciplinary through this idea of phenomenology. It wanted to explain the realities of society, how? Through various issues. These issues were studied through various frameworks, through various dimensions. Poverty is economic problem, it is a social problem, it's a political problem. So you need at least sociology, economics, political science to understand it. Right? Are you understanding this logic? So anything when you look at from different perspectives, multiple perspectives, you require at least knowledge of different subjects. When a subject becomes multidisciplinary, right, what does it mean? It starts involving the study of other subjects also, intersubjective. It started employing knowledge from other fields also. They started accommodating this knowledge into public administration. So it was starting, but it was not fully developed, right? Goals without plans lack pragmatism, correct? It was more a knee-jerk reaction, right? Too reactive. Anti-goals, right? Talks about anti-goals, but does not know exactly how to implement them. If you're against technology or you're against technical design, then what would you replace it with? That was not clear. If you deny this traditional PubEd, then how are you going to achieve the goals and programs? That is also not clear. What will be the system that you want to create to achieve the new goals, which the old system could not achieve? Right? You brought the perspective of politics administration convergence or association, right? This automatically denies the importance of dichotomy. Once it is denied, then politics and administration start intermingling together. Ultimately, what will happen? Neutrality will be eliminated. Unbiased approach of administration will decline. Politicization will start. Right? So see, one student has asked Ashutosh Nayak. See, you asked a question that dichotomy provided basis for PA, also created problem for its existence. When you say dichotomy, first thing is important thing is to understand that it is only academic idea. right? In reality, you cannot separate them. They are organically linked together, right? One exists because of the other. So when we are saying dichotomy is the basis of PAS, the starting basis of emergence of public administration was that it should be separate from political science or politics. So that is correct. That starting point was dichotomy. So dichotomy provided the identity to PubAd. There is something which is distinct from politics which should be studied. Right? But when you make something distinct from politics or political science, right, can it remain isolated from political influence? It cannot. If it becomes distinct from political science or politics, it will face, or society will face, problems of accountability. Who will make the administration accountable if you say that bureaucrats should be treated separately and they should not come under the control of ministers? Who will make them accountable? Who will monitor them? Who will make them understand why policies are made? Will they not enjoy a lot of power? If they enjoy a lot of power, then they can misuse that power. See? So the problem is that NPA brings this idea that dichotomy should be discarded. So it was not wrong, right? Because it wanted to make administration more sensitive to the society, not like a machine working without any accountability or without any compassion for people. So it wanted to make administration more compassionate, more humanistic, right? But at what cost? At the cost of politicization. For example, the government says that you will become our Rath Prabharis. Huh? What are Rath Prabharis now? Obviously, they are politicized bureaucrats. If bureaucrats are working on behalf of the government, they will work for the people. They are not necessarily to work for the politician. Working for the government does not mean working for the party. But in a democracy, it is very difficult to differentiate between party and government. So certain types of instructions can be given to the bureaucracy where it would seem that the instruction is coming from the government, but it will be coming from the party. This is one such instruction that showcase the government's achievement. अरे government की achievement दिखानी है तो 1950s से show करो. That is what government's achievement is, right? Government's achievement is not just this government achievement. So you can very easily politicize the bureaucracy without even people knowing it. That is why democracy sometimes tends to be captured by the elite interest, by particular interest, whereas it has to work for the general interest of society. So NPA promotes politicization. This you understand? If I say that. So if you get a question like this, that in spite of the focus on eliminating dichotomy, right, making administration more sensitive, the NPA indirectly promotes politicization. Will it be correct? Yes. So you have to understand this theme. So NPA had drawbacks, right? But ultimately NPA provided an important basis to the re-emergence of public administration. It provided it some new identity. It gave something to look forward to. Otherwise, after crisis of identity, challenge, right, lack of any identity, they did not have any knowledge what exactly to be done. So from PubAd as political science to PubAd as management to PubAd as PubAd, PubAd has evolved through a lot of changes. One of that important incident, or you can say the event, was NPA. So NPA comes and NPA becomes a movement now. So there are 3 NPAs conducted, like I said, 68, 88, 2008. But within them, there was a lot of gap. So see, NPA 1 happens, and now from 68 to 88 when you go, almost 20 years lapse. And these 20 years, lot of other developments take place. So questions are asked like, what was or what changed from NPA 1 to NPA 2? Now we cannot understand NPA 1 and 2 or difference between them unless we understand what changed between them. Okay, that is a big challenge to be understood, especially for this unit. That sometimes we feel that, okay, why not we directly study this? Yes, it would have been easy. But you will not develop the sense that why this happened and why this happened. So we can directly compare 1 to 2 and say, okay, this is what 2 is, this is what 1 is, right? But what has passed between them, unless you know that, you will never appreciate why NPA 2. So public choice approach emerged as one very important agenda after the NPA 1 or just parallelly to NPA 1. Right? You write few questions related to NPA, then we'll talk about PCA. Questions you write. And then a short summary, then we'll write about PCA. Right. What is new in new public administration? Most simplest logic that we can apply. What is new in new public administration? Right? 100 words, not more than comment, 100 words. Think of it, what can be new in that? Second, NPA. NPA at best can be considered as radicalism in words than deeds. Radicalism in words than deeds. You understand why we have written this? It did not have practical guidelines to achieve what it wanted. Right. Then, next question. Within quotes, you write. According to George Fredrickson, this is a very interesting definition, but it is in the form of a question. According to George Fredrickson, within quotes, NPA, okay, I'm writing it here. NPA is more public, less generic. Kindly write it, make a star. It's a very important statement, generally asked as a question. Is more public, less generic, less technical, more social, less institutional, more problem oriented, less universal, more contextual, more normative, and hope no less scientific. So Fredrickson says NPA is more public, less generic. Right? In fact, you can use him and also write the characteristics of puppet. But what does he mean by this? This is very important. So this can be a direct question in the exam. More public, more focus on society, people, human oriented. Less generic means it is more concerned about universal knowledge. It is more concerned about social problems. Generic is science. Fine. So universal knowledge or scientific knowledge. The NPA was not concerned about developing principles of science. It was more concerned about knowing the problems of society. Generic means what? Generalized principle. So Weber, Taylor, Fayol were focusing more on universal principles. It was focusing more on society. See, try to understand this concept simplified and say it is more about scientific principles. Generic.
Sir, आपके head-out में there was a serious mention of NPA is against the behavioralist antagonist. So how can we say that?
We'll talk about. It's coming, same thing. Right? So, because see, NPA is entire class of developments, 1, 2, 3. So उसमें बहुत सारे statements हैं जो सब समझने के बाद समझ में आएंगे. जब 3 पढ़ लेंगे तो वो सारा समझ में आ जाएगा. Because it will cover many things, right? See. So it is saying more public, less generic. What is the meaning of generic principles? Generic means which is generalized. Generalized means which is universal. Universal is science. There is nothing universal but science. So when the traditional scholars were developing knowledge, they were more concerned about what? The universal principles of management. कौन से principles थे वो? Principles of management. Or let's say organization. They were concerned about those principles which are applicable anywhere. Understanding? But what did NPA did? It said move out of the organization and look at the society. Shift from studying organization and focus on society. See, this is a big change or not? So what is NPA concerned about? Society means the word public here reflects what? Government, right? Public interest, public welfare. So see the shift that instead of talking about hierarchy, right, principles, supervision, post-corp, instead of talking about the internal aspects of organization, talk about the external aspect. What is that? Where this organization is working, what it is working for. It is working for people. So talk about people. See? And people here means government. That be more concerned about the specific role of public administration, not about the general principles of organization which can be used anywhere. So this statement reflects that there is a difference between public and private. There is a difference between industrial organization and government organization. You have not distinguished. They did not make a distinction between public and private. That is the idea. So if I now simplify and say, okay, this is more about private. So he's trying to say that our study or NPA is not concerned about techniques, tools, principles. It is concerned about the real problems of society. Yes, because it was more private oriented, right? Coming from industrial sector. Who? They did not. But he said there should be. If you say private organization can be designed as public organization, yes, it can be, right? But will their roles be same? No, that is what he's trying to say. That your knowledge got confined only to that idea. You did not move beyond it to find out that a government organization and a private organization or the principles developed in the private sector cannot be applied equally in government sector. So their role will differ, their goals will differ. Right? So keep making note there. This is very important. Less technical, more social. This is clear. It's less about techniques, it's more about society. Less institutional, more problem oriented. What does it mean?
Thinking of the structures and hierarchies, thinking about the pattern of relation matrix or relations.
See, I want to understand the bureaucracy. I want to understand civil services. So, what will I study? Structure, system, arrangement, procedure. I'll study all that. Right? What benefit I will have by studying all this? I can manage the organization effectively. Can I solve the problems of society effectively? No. Why?
Because you're not studying the society aspect.
I have not studied the relationship of this system's efficiency, this system's betterment with the consequence for society. If organization improves itself, it must be reflected in its functioning in the society. So he's saying it is less institutional means what? It is less concerned about improving the organization and it is more concerned about solving the problem. If I develop a best organization, what does this best mean? Is the system best or its function is best? Generally system best. They were talking about the system design, right? It's like making one of the best knives. So what will you do out of that knife? What is the purpose? Make the sharpest knife good. You develop all the principles to make a good organization, best organization, efficient organization. What is the purpose? That you have not clarified. So you're saying purpose kya hai? An organization is best if it can solve the problem, not by virtue of being best in itself. So if you say I am dressed properly, right? For what occasion? So see, if you say I am dressed properly, it must be in relation to something, no? Because there is no universal dressing or universal best dress. Wearing a coat is not universally a best dress if you want to sleep. So everything that you say is best must be defined with respect to something. So he's saying you are talking about institution, organization, system, right? And talking about developing the best organization. But for what? What is the purpose? That is not clear. So he's saying purpose kya hai? It will be best. Rather than focusing on only designing the system, I should focus on what is the problem of the society. Then probably once I know the problem, then I can design it better. Only then I can know what will be a good organization. So you created, let us say, for example, we have a very practical example, right? You talked about election commission, right? Chief election commission. You did modifications to that. There was single election commissioner or chief election commissioner. Now there are three. What difference did it make to the elections? No, it might have made some difference. Representation of People's Act 1951-52. Okay? Anti-defection law. Modifications to election commission. EVM. Nota. Right? Then your, what is that famous case? एक famous case है which targeted at restricting the election or contestant of elections by those people who are charged of criminal offenses. What is that case? Think about it, right? So, see, there is these development, right? Now, obviously, they want to now. Recently, there was talk about giving more power to the election commission. Election commission should have more teeth. Okay. Suspending the political party, right? Restricting their representatives, imposing model code of conduct, fine, and likewise. So we have done all this. We have focused on how to improve the system. We created, for example, Chief Information Commission. We created Lokpal. We created Lokayukt. We created CBI, anti-corruption agencies. हमने किस पे focus किया? Institutions पे, systems पे, right? Did we focus on corruption? No. See, it is not always true. But defining corruption is equally important, no? Knowing how corruption takes place, that is also equally important. Just about talking about controlling corruption through system, right? Without knowing what exactly is corruption. That is why you need Prevention of Money Laundering Act. You need ED. You need this. You need that. Why? Because the nature of corruption is changing. Is it or not? So the focus of the study to control corruption should only be about improving the Lokpal, Lokayukt, CBI, or it should also be about studying what is corruption. Less institutional, more problem oriented. Fine? So logically, see, it is saying that we are not focused only on design, structure, and we are talking about agencies, government, system. We are also concerned about, we are identifying the core problems. We are identifying the core issues. We are studying them. We are not just talking in terms of system. By making a good law, you do not control the problem. By implementing the law, you control the problem. Right? So execution is very important. Whereas the previous scholars were more focused on institution, development of systems, right? Improving the organization. So they are saying we are moving out of the organization and we are going into the society and then trying to understand the actual problem, and then probably we'll talk about it. Fine? See. Less universal, more contextual, similar thing. It is more focused on the problems of American society at that point of time. It was not obsessed with science of administration. It was more obsessed with solutions for American problems. Right? And likewise, every society needs to understand its own problems and then develop solutions for them. More normative, value-based, correct? But no less scientific. So it was not less empirical, they are saying. See, that we are talking about more about human values. We are talking about subjective aspects, but still, we do not deny the importance of being scientific. The only thing is that we are not obsessed with that. We will use this knowledge as a means to resolve the problems. The knowledge itself is not the end. Bureaucracy is the most efficient form of organization. Knowledge ends. Bureaucracy, the most efficient form of organization, can be used to overcome poverty and injustice. That knowledge is used as means. Public administration is the science of or art and science of governing. हो गया definition? फायदा क्या इसका? What is the benefit of this definition? क्या है? So are you developing knowledge just for the sake of theoretical development, or are you developing knowledge for the sake of practical application? Normative, right? But no less scientific. See, they are trying to say that our purpose is not just to develop knowledge. Our purpose is to apply this knowledge. So anything, right, must have practical application. So we are more concerned about practical application. You are more concerned about knowledge, right? We can club these together and we can use it. So being not less scientific means that they did not discard the scientific study, but they said scientific study is not the end. It is only a means. For example, we say science is not the end. We know about black holes, right? We know about universe. We know about so many things. Let's say moon. So what do we do now? क्या करना चाहिए?
Try to use that knowledge.
Same thing. They are also saying being scientific is not crime. We are not criticizing you for being scientific. We are criticizing you for lack of application of this knowledge. You have developed scientific knowledge, but you have not provided that where this knowledge will be applied. So anything which has scientific knowledge must have practical application. So somebody explains how nuclear fission takes place. What then? Well, it should have application. So nuclear fission का क्या use है? But somebody had to explain, no, okay, there is nuclear fission, right? Who are they? That's a science-based knowledge. Then somebody will say, okay, fine, you have did experiments, you have tested everything, you have brought this knowledge. Now what should we do? He said, I created this theory so that I can get Nobel Prize. Finish. Why did Stephen Hawking did not get Nobel Prize? He is a theoretical physicist. Who is a theoretical physicist? Who analyzes through logic, but there is no practical evidence of that. Even though what he said is visible. But there was no way by which he could have actually practically proved his theory. So sometimes we are creating knowledge by analysis, by logic, right? But we are not providing enough evidence or enough use of that knowledge. So all the principles of administration that were developed, they only ended at developing principles. They did not say that if these principles are applied, organization becomes efficient, then what benefit it will have for the society. So see, there was no purpose of this knowledge. There was no goal associated with this knowledge. But this is his view, right? We should not take it absolute statement. So he's saying that NPA does not criticize science. It only says the science should have some contribution, or the scientific knowledge should have some contribution to society. इतना समझ में आ रहा है नहीं आ रहा?
Like in paradigm 5 also we talk about the challenge is this only, that the application relevance of this knowledge. So is this still this challenge is still facing paradigm also, like
That is why NPA comes. No? NPA has come to overcome it. The challenge was already this problem is always there throughout the study of any subject. Some people will make knowledge. Some people will say that this knowledge is not suitable for understanding society. Right? There is a need to develop some more knowledge. But how to develop that knowledge again is a challenge. So if you say, okay, I know how to make nuclear energy, right? But how this will be useful for people, society, I don't know that. So somebody will criticize you that you have just developed this knowledge because you wanted to prove your academic excellence. It has no practical use, right? So if I criticize you, I should provide the alternative. That, okay, see, this is how you can put this nuclear energy to use of the society. ये तो बताना चाहिए ना सही. So NPA says, make your knowledge relevant. Talk about this, don't talk just about this. But how this knowledge will be made relevant, that NPA also does not say. So you can simply understand that knowledge which was existing, that was in the form of a scientific knowledge, but it was not applicable, or it was not known how to apply this knowledge to society. So NPA brings this idea that if your organization is efficient, it will promote social justice, it will promote equality, it should promote relevance, change, whatever. If it doesn't do that, then what is the use of your knowledge? Understanding? Right? So that is the idea. Now he brings this statement. This statement is actually a question, or which can be used mostly as a question, that what is the, or describe or comment on the statement given by Fredrickson. So every line or word you have to take, you have to analyze and give some practical examples, right? For example, poverty. So technical knowledge can help us poverty estimation, right? But can it help us know what poor are feeling? Then you need some knowledge, right? Or at least you need this idea that your technical knowledge is not enough. Talk about this. That is what NPA is doing. It is giving a direction to the knowledge which was existing. Are you understanding this logic? Clear है? कोई doubt है? ठीक है. Fine. So if this question comes, kindly try to use this discussion and write it. Fine.